Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/entitled people for you all. As per usual, I'll be narrating these, giving my opinion. I hope you do so in the comments down below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Advanced 77. My manager put me on a shift without telling me. I got woken up this morning by a call from my coworker telling me that I was meant to be in work 45 minutes ago. So, essentially, my manager is brain dead and didn't ask me if I was available or not and just put me on a shift because she felt like it. I only work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for a reason, and I specifically told them that when I started. But no, they just decided to schedule me in for some random Monday without asking beforehand. So I had to get out of bed, get ready in like 5 minutes, and get someone to leave me there, which is a 25-minute drive, so I was like an hour and a half late, all because of my manager. Granted, I probably should have checked the schedule, but I just assumed I'm on every Friday to Sunday at the same time, so I kinda stopped checking it. So it's maybe 5% my fault, but what kind of dickhead doesn't even check if someone can work a day they'd never normally work? Like, I have 4 managers, and I don't even know who my boss is, but not even one of them asked. Edit? Another reason I was caught off guard was because they actually did ask me if I could work a Monday before, but they asked the night before and I said no, so I just assumed that if they ever needed me during the week, they would at least ask first, but apparently not. Okay, my 2 cents, this is on purpose, and this is an attempt to try to essentially prove that you can work Mondays so they can schedule you on Mondays more often. This was something my first job used to do. They would lure you in and then occasionally bait and switch you out or give you a text message and then belittle or berate you for not making it on time and, oh, you made it last Monday, so you can make it the next one, then the one after that, and now suddenly you're working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then next thing you know, it's Tuesday nights, then it's Wednesday nights, and suddenly you're now working almost every single night of the week, and when you started, you told them you could only work weekends. I also have a memory of one time I was scheduled to work during the day on a Tuesday when I was at school, and I was like, I can't make this, I have school, and it's like, well, I just assume that because my kids have that Tuesday off that everyone has it off. And it's like, no, that's, your kids go to a different school district. And to mention those little bastards used to run around in the kitchen. Oh my god, that whole place was a health hazard. Imagine like trying to work around fryers and grills and having like a 7-year-old that's the boss's kid, like running around randomly behind you. That was not a safe environment. The fact that those kids never got injured once is a miracle. But back to OP, yeah, no, you're fine here. You gave them what days you were able to work. They already established they would ask you beforehand. They randomly put you on a Monday. This may have been a scheduling error, but you definitely got to put your foot down, and you actually kind of made the mistake by showing up on that Monday. Granted, yes, it is a dick move to leave your coworker high and dry, but you're not scheduled for Mondays. You got to be careful about that. Make sure that they are very much aware that this is a one-and-done deal. Now, not all first bosses are assholes, but sometimes you give them an inch and they will take that mile. Mr. Coco, 1234. Entitled Hellspawn wants my Coke and his mother decided that ordering me to hand it over was a great idea. Quick disclaimer, English is not my first language. So I just flew back from Dubai, and I had the unfortunate luck of sitting next to an entitled mother and her unruly child. I was cursing myself because I have had terrible experiences with children in my aisles on flights, so I was already not in a great mood. The flight started out pretty smooth, but things quickly took a turn. This kid, who must have been around 5 or 6, was running up and down the aisle, throwing toys and making a mess. The flight attendants were doing their best to manage, but the mother was just sitting there, scrolling through her phone like nothing was happening, or just telling people to ignore him because he's just a kid. About halfway through the flight, I ordered a Coke. As soon as it arrived, the kid zeroed in on it. He started whining and pointing at my drink, making a scene. Before I knew it, the mother was giving me these dirty looks, like I was some kind of demon for not sharing my Coke with her prince. She leaned over and, in a tone that dripped with arrogance, said, "He really wants your drink, just give it to him." I was stunned. I mean, it's free, so just ask the attendant to get one yourself. When I declined and suggested she ask the flight attendant for another one, she huffed and rolled her eyes, muttering something under her breath. I'm a petty guy, so I took my sweet time in having the drink while loudly playing music on my headphones to spite her. I ordered another Coke, but This time her kid tried swiping the drink from the attendant's hand. The attendant scolded the mother in a quiet and stern tone to bring her kid under control, after which the mother huffed and puffed like an out-of-shape marathon runner. For the rest of the flight, she kept glaring at me, like I had snitched on her to a principal, while her kid continued causing problems. It's amazing how some parents think the world revolves around them and their poorly behaved children. Why have kids when you can't be arsed to parent them properly? I still don't know why she wouldn't just ask the flight attendant to, give her child a drink. That's like a absolutely insane factor of this. Is like, why is it only special when it comes from the hands of someone else? Type of person to go and, find a street performer and take their hat and just, thank you very much, my kid wanted the quarters. With all these airline stories, I'm reminded of the time that I was sitting on a flight. I was boarding, I got there early, I was having a good time. Sat down, plane started filling up, and I realized, the seats next to me are empty. Maybe I'm lucky enough to have, an empty row to myself. I realized the row next to me is also empty. And once the plane started filling up more and more, I had the depressing realization that there's probably a reason why there's 5 seats conveniently empty. And sure enough, at the very end of it all, there was an announcement from the attendant saying they were waiting for 5 more passengers. Counted the seats next to me and all the fear that I felt. And, yep, sure enough. Family of 5 comes in. I'm sat next to 2 kids. 5 and 6, at least. They were well behaved though. They did good. No problem with that. I just was not expecting it to be a family of 5 and, my ILC was taken up and the kids pretty much just watched me play Super Mario Galaxy on my Switch for the entire time. Didn't even ask me if they can play. I was actually really impressed by that. But still, just the utter shock and awe of slowly watching the plane fill up and the dreaded realization of, oh, I'm fucked, aren't I? Aja Emerald, entitled ER Waiting Room Pushes a Nurse Too Far. 2 years ago, my mom had the first of 2 strokes that left her disabled and eventually led to her death 19 months later. She'd complained of a headache for a few days, and I'd asked about going to the ER, but she said it was getting better. The next morning, she displayed symptoms like she had with a previous stroke: confusion, shuffling gait, etc. Not the usual symptoms, but I knew. Since an ambulance would take her to the worst hospital in the county, I convinced her to get an Uber with me to go to the doctor's office. Really, to the ER, but she would have refused if I said that. By the time we got to the ER that I knew would treat her well, she was having trouble walking, so I grabbed a wheelchair and wheeled her in. I told the front desk her info and that she was having symptoms of a stroke, then went to sit with her. About 3 minutes later, a nurse came out and took us right back to a room. Apparently, there was a lot of grumbling from the others in the full waiting room, which I was too stressed to notice. A friend was coming to meet us and she had to sit in the waiting room for a few minutes. She heard the rest of the story. She arrived about 10 minutes after we were taken back and walked in to hear people complaining amongst themselves. Eventually, people were going to the desk angry, saying it was unfair. Some of them had waited for hours, and my mom had gotten special treatment. I guess some of them even raised their voice because the nurse who'd gotten my mom heard them from the triage room and stormed out into the waiting room. He outright yelled at everyone about how people are seen in the order of who is the sickest, and that woman who was taken back right away had a stroke, and there was a very limited amount of time to save her life. A few people tried to keep complaining, and he yelled again that anyone unhappy about it could walk right out the door and go to any of the other dozen-plus hospitals in the metro area. He then called the security officer down to make sure that no one started any further issues. Moral of the story: if you go to the ER and they make you wait, be thankful. It likely means you're not going to end up disabled or dead. I can definitely understand that in an ER waiting room situation, tensions are definitely going to be high because you're there for a reason. You definitely have a lot going on and you're going to be stressed. You're going to want yourself or whoever you're with to be treated next because that's just how humans are. But if I was in the ER for, let's say, a broken arm and I didn't have bones sticking out of my body and I watched someone get wheeled into a wheelchair and immediately brought to the back, I don't think I'd have any questions. I go, oh shit, I hope they're okay, and continue to wait for me to be called, because that's just how it should be. Hell, the only time I've ever received special treatment at the ER was when my mom overreacted about me having a spider bite that no one could recognize. Granted, it's better to overreact on a spider bite than underreact, and it turns out, oh, that was a wolf spider and now your skin is falling off the bone. Whoopsie whoopsie. So I was rushed to the ER and they got a look at me and I was pretty much in and out. I got to watch an episode of Ben 10 while I was there. It was a big win. It was technically an Alien Force episode and it's when they were introducing Kevin 11 for the first time. So literally the first episode of Ben 10 Alien Force. But still, that is locked in my memory forever because of that. And I remember just sitting there and freaking out that like, am I gonna die because of the spider bite? And turns out, nope, thankfully it was just a common house spider bite and I was gonna be fine. But still, actually on second thought, now I feel bad because I'm realizing that I probably took up a lot of valuable resources in the ER and, there were probably people who had been waiting there for a while and some, child got rushed to the back and, thankfully I don't remember it being super busy, so that's probably for the best. I don't know, I'd be curious to know what some of your guys' ER stories are, because I've only been in twice. One of them was when I was doing football practice when I was 9. I did full-on hand-to-hand contact with the person I was up against, one of the linemen, and I felt my entire bone move under my arm, and it turns out that I broke it. It was a fracture that turned into a break, so the feeling that I felt was the fracture sliding out of plug. God, can't talk about that anymore. Ooh, that is making me uncomfortable. Okay, anyways, not fun. Sober on life. You didn't give me free stuff. I'm not shopping here anymore. Back in February, we got some very lazy emails from a guy asking for free shit/sponsorship. We get bullshit requests like this all the time. It's the equivalent of a 12-year-old gamer with 100 Twitch followers asking a game store for sponsorship. Give me free games and I'll promote your store on my channel. These emails from this one guy, though, were particularly lazy. No text in the body, just a poorly worded message in the subject line and some phone screenshots attached. It was more than enough to tell me that he was looking for free shit, though. This is where it gets pathetic. To bring it back to the Twitch streamer analogy, this guy didn't even have a channel yet. He just wanted to make one, and the screenshots were of Facebook messages from his friends saying, "Yeah, I'd watch if you had a channel." You can bet your ass I deleted those emails without ever replying to them. Today, he replied to a generic marketing email. He said, "Remove me from your mailing list. I reached out months ago asking for a business partnership and you ignored me, so I'm never shopping with you again." First off, you can just hit the unsubscribe button, you lazy fuck. There's no need to ask us to do it for you. Secondly, I don't care that you won't be shopping with us ever again. You've spent $150 with us over 2 years, so it's no loss. Thirdly, fuck you. You're not special. You don't have anything of worth to offer us. The only reason you requested sponsorship is to stroke your undeserved ego. Thinking about it, he probably did know he could just unsubscribe. I bet he wanted to take the opportunity to let us know that he wasn't shopping with us again. What a petty, petty man. See, YouTubers, we kind of have the reverse problem. While there are sponsors that are good and they understand who you are, they look into who you are as a content creator. Shout out to GamerSubs, use code OZ at checkout. They've been wonderful to work with and they actually looked into who I was as a creator. And I was actually able to have a conversation with them. Other sponsors, though, they send out like a mass email because they have a bot that goes and scrapes the YouTube business email inquiry and they will hound me. And it's clear with like 99% of them, they have no idea who I am. They're just sending out a mass email and calling it good, and usually it's for dumb stuff or for ridiculous requests. I mean, hell, one of them I literally got yesterday was asking me if I'd be willing to sell off 20% of my channel for, basically nothing. They get 20% of my ad revenue and a promised undisclosed reach, and they also wanted to make an AI clone of my voice where they would be able to essentially... It was messy. I didn't want to do that. It was gross. I'm not giving you 20% of my channel so you can make an AI clone of my voice. I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Why would I give you 20% of my profits so you could clone my voice? I could go on a massive rant and tangent about just how messy the YouTube sponsor space is, but that's not what this is about. This is about a goober who tried getting a sponsorship from a local game store without even having a channel. Like, Buddy didn't even put his socks on before he, went out the door. And he's out here like, hey, sponsor me. Be one thing if maybe he had, an upbringing channel and there was maybe something there, but at the same time, even in that circumstance, it doesn't benefit the game store to even have, a 5,000 subscriber YouTube channel sponsoring them, because the chances of that audience being actually localized within the same area as a retail store is slim pickings, next to zero. If it was 100,000, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. There's a little bit of something there. But, like, not even having a channel? Dude didn't even put underwear on before going out the door. Hungry ad, 7627. Plane seat bandit finally happened to me. People stealing plane seats and getting told off for it are some of my favorite stories on Reddit. With the increase of plane seat bandits, most likely due to airlines almost making it a requirement to pay for seats if you want to sit next to your plane partner, I've been half expecting to run into one since me and my husband travel a lot for work. Well, it finally happened and it was fun. Me and my husband always buy plane seats towards the back of the plane. As we stroll down, we see a lady with a young son, maybe 11 or 12, sitting in our seats. They were both deep in their phones when I told her she was in our seats. We had to wake up at 3 a.m. to drive to the airport, and we didn't really sleep, so I was not in the mood for this bullshit. Who the hell prefers plane seats at the back? I always go for the front because I like getting off first. It took a lot of willpower not turning that into a dirty joke. She smiles and tells us that they weren't seated together, so the stewardess told her they could sit here. She most definitely didn't. I smile back and say we paid for these seats, so we would like to sit there. She keeps smiling her stiff smile and points to other empty seats behind us and asks if we wouldn't mind sitting in one of them since they are already settled in and comfortable. Would it even matter? Well, I said yeah, since the plane is still boarding, so these might all be reserved, and it really messes with the system if people sit in random seats. She's starting to lose her smile and says if there aren't seats available after the plane is finished boarding, they would move then. Now, I'm not confrontational, and I'm usually a people pleaser, so I'm struggling to stand up for myself, but I'm so proud for doing it anyways. Meanwhile, my husband is struggling between boarding passengers to get the flight attendant. I sigh and with a half smile say, I'm sorry, but I just want to sit down and not stand in the hallway blocking people to see if maybe there are empty seats when I paid for our seats. And besides, I would like the police to be able to identify our bodies by seat number in case the plane crashes and our families want to bury our remains. The kid's face, which had been glued to his phone this entire time, shoots up in shock and he looks between me and his mom. Oh, it was delicious. She has a bewildered look on her face. There's like silence for 5 seconds before she packs up her stuff and pokes her son to move. I keep smiling sweetly and thank her and plop myself down as my husband returns with a flight attendant. I tell her everything is fine and tell my husband what happened. We laughed and I'm pretty sure the mom heard, or I hope so. I didn't look back, but I think I'm not mistaken of feeling a laser stare in the back of my head. Luckily the flight was only 3 hours, so I didn't need to walk past for the loo. Honestly, after all the Boeing shit going on, that's probably a pretty valid concern. Oh, it's morbid. My point still stands though. Who actually seeks out seats in the back of the plane? Those are usually the worst seats to get because it's just uncomfortable. Maybe it's because I'm an impatient mess and I like being at the front so I can board first and get off first, but I don't know. Like row 8 is usually where I end up at because, you know, the first couple rows are for first class and then row 7 never has like actual carry-on storage beneath the seats. So row 8 is like the best place to be because you got the underseat storage, you got the overhead storage, and that way I'm like perfectly content and happy. And that's where I like to be on a plane. Plus those first couple rows have more legroom, and me being a 6-foot-tall freak of nature, I need that extra legroom. Lesson learned. My mother thinks she can sleep in a tent in my yard, despite knowing the home isn't mine. I'm a 29-year-old woman and my mother and I have had our problems. Just like many other toxic mother-daughter relationships, I left home as a teenager to escape the abusive environment our home had become. I moved in with a friend in a different state, which also didn't end super well, but that's a story for a different post, and continue to keep communication open. She's continued to cause drama at every major event in my life, but I consider myself a pro at moving on at this point. I have planned PTO coming up in a couple months because my job will be closed for renovations and she's been planning a visit during this time. Over the past few months, she's mentioned it a few times and we've worked through the details together. Today, she emailed me to say that when she comes to visit, she'll likely not have the funding for anything more than gas. She plans to bring a tent for her and her husband to sleep in during the stay and has inquired about available space in my yard. Despite being fully aware that I do not own the home I live in, and that I do not have the right to allow her to stay in our yard in a tent and use our facilities for any amount of time, much less several days. At first, I hoped it was some awful attempt at humor, putting me in an uncomfortable position in order to laugh at my discomfort, because it's something she's done several times in my life. Once she even pretended to have full-blown Tourette syndrome, complete with vocal tics worthy of an episode of South Park, in the middle of a crowded shopping center, just to laugh at my humiliation at her antics. So this seemed likely. Unfortunately, she was serious, and when I told her no, that I couldn't help her with this, she simply said, "All right, I'll figure it out myself." As though it isn't the most irresponsible choice to drive halfway across the country as a grown adult who knows they cannot afford to do such a thing. I have no idea what will happen, but I'm expecting a "What? Don't you want to see us?" response anytime, since I advised her not to make the trip at all since she clearly can't afford it. As a grown adult who can't afford to travel myself, I am astounded at the audacity. Edit. Wow, I have never gotten this much of a response on any post in the past, so I'm going to answer a few questions I feel matter that I've seen in the comments. 1. Why not cut her out completely? A. I honestly don't have a good reason, just that I'd feel guilty. I'm the only family member out of state, and I worry that cutting her out will result in loss of family that I would regret losing. I'm just afraid, I guess. 2. Why don't you offer to put her in a hotel? A. I'm like a lot of people in my age group these days, struggling. I'm not even the only earner in the house, and we're still chasing the wrong end of the paycheck at the end of the day. I'd love to have been able to go back and visit myself, but it would be irresponsible to attempt a trip I can't afford, and putting my own little family at risk is not worth the moment of happiness I might find checking in on others that I miss. 3. Is it possible her living situation has changed and she doesn't plan on leaving my yard? A. I never even considered this, and it horrified me to see it worded out. I would love to think that she could never pull something like that, but honestly, I feel like anything is possible. Thank you all for your logical advice. I really appreciate knowing that my own little circle isn't wrong to think the things I've seen here. I'm still waiting to hear how she responds to my suggestion that she not come, and I'll do my best to post an end to this unfortunate story. Edit 2. Wow, okay. Apparently the whole "I can't afford anything but gas" story was all a ruse to get to spend more time together while she visits. Allegedly, she is more than comfortable financially and has no fear that this trip will put her into financial hardship, as she's making better money than ever before. Plus, she gets really good deals on rooms because she works for a popular hotel brand. I honestly don't know what to think at this point. I honestly don't know if it'll be worse if she's lying about her financial stability to make me feel better and let my guard down about her visit, or if it's 100% legitimate and she lied about financial hardship simply to play on my emotions. Either way, I can't stop her from making the trip. All I can do is make sure I stick to my boundaries and not allow her to overstep them. Thank you all for your helpful advice and honest opinions. Hard as it may be to hear some of them, I can't deny it all needed to be said. Yeah, her lying to guilt trip you is extremely unacceptable, and I also understand why you're hesitant to go no contact because, well, it might sabotage your relationship with other people in your family. That's a pretty shitty situation to be in, and I totally understand that. It does bother me how often Reddit jumps straight towards go no contact, because it's not a viable option for everyone. That can open more doors of pain and harm than it could close. It's very short-sighted, and it does feel like sometimes that if any mild inconvenience happens, Reddit immediately just hits the button, no contact, don't ever talk to them again, and that's how it seems to go. When there are consequences to that, like in this circumstance, if she did go no contact, she would isolate herself from members of family that she would miss. So going no contact isn't always a situation that's possible, and it does annoy me to see that always be the go-to response in almost every fucking post. And yet, sometimes it's definitely valid and warranted, but your dad looks at you wrong and says your cooking's shitty, go no contact and never talk to that pig again. And I wish I was exaggerating because I've seen things that are very similar to that. I don't know. I am starting to get the weird impression that a lot of people seem to go to the most extreme solutions for the simplest of problems. In this scenario, the mom is definitely just kind of not a great mother, and there has been pre-established issues in the past, but they're still on speaking terms. And yeah, what she did was wrong, but for people to immediately jump to go no contact, that I don't know. And jumping back to point 1 with the whole no contact, having fears of the repercussions of going no contact is entirely normal. And again, real quick, there are definitely scenarios where going no contact is the better solution and the safest one. I am not saying that no contact should never be considered. I'm just saying that it feels like the slightest inconvenience or parental fuck up gets hit with immediately go no contact. Maybe I'm wrong and just like fucking crazy. I don't know. It wouldn't be the first time in this channel that I have just a completely out-of-pocket opinion that, doesn't deserve to be around. But I read the comments. If you guys think that I'm wrong on this, like, please let me know. Don't forget, this is brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code ODDS at checkout. It's basically a caffeine powder that you put in your water, and I actually really like it. I use this on a daily basis. Don't forget that every purchase you make using code ODDS directly supports the channel. And if you want a personal recommendation from me, I would either recommend the Soda Pressing Pear or Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are currently my favorite flavors. And as a note, once we sell a certain amount of stuff, I get my own flavor and my own cup, and you all know I'm gonna choose some degenerate shit that's gonna make their PR team squirm. My goal is to make them regret partnering with me. So please, use code ODDS at checkout to make my dream come true of making a PR team squirm.